welcome to the first episode of the Sunshine Podcast, where we talk about things, interesting things, sunshiny things, things we're still trying to work out as we go. In fact, we're here today to tell you the kinds of things we're planning on, who we are, and why we're here. The Sunshine Podcast is an outreach of Sunshine Free Will Baptist Church here in the sunny and beautiful West End of Huntington, West Virginia. We're currently seated in a cozy Sunday school room at a round table bedecked with microphones and cords and beach blankets and stuff, and the four of us are all looking around at each other, nervous and uncertain. And just who are these four people? Well, my name is Levi Johnston, and I've been the one rambling for the past minute or so, and I'll be your host for this episode. I'm the choir leader, music director type person at Sunshine Free Will Baptist Church, as well as sometimes a teacher and a lay apologist. I'm also the one editing these episodes, so if it sounds weird, it's probably my fault. Moving around the table in a clockwise fashion, I'll let the other three guys introduce themselves, starting with Lee on my left, wearing a nice black shirt. Go ahead, Lee.
My name is Lee Green, and I am a deacon here at Sunshine Free Will Baptist Church. I teach Sunday school. In fact, one of the topics that I'm going to be talking about came from our Sunday school class. I've been here at this church for about 11 years or so now, and really enjoy it, and I'm thankful to be here with some good Christian brothers. And I will pass it along to Brother Kenny, who is sitting to my left in a very nice casual purple shirt.
Thank you, Lee. My name is Kenny Hatfield. I am an ordained minister as well as a trustee here at Sunshine. And my favorite, I'm the Wednesday night game director with the kids. But I've been going to church here about 5 years, and I guess I'll bring the youthful perspective I told them in our meeting, since I'm younger than all these guys. And I'm excited to just see what can happen with this. I think there's a lot of good that can come from having the conversations, showing the conversations that we have. That I think we've had some great conversations in our past workups to the Philippians study and the Philippians series, let's call it, and the different series, maybe the Sermon on the Mount series. So just those types of things, I've always taken something great from those, and I think maybe it would be great to see what someone else might be able to take from them, whoever listens to it. So, and I'll pass it on to my left to our pastor, Jody Fortner.
Yeah, I'm Jody Fortner. I've been the senior pastor here at the church for going on 13 years, full 12 years. This is a church I grew up in as a kid. And so I'm very fond of our church, love our church, and just honored to be here.
All right, so now you know who you're listening to, and as we continue the podcast, every episode will help you grow to know us each a little better, and hopefully that'll be a good thing. And here's what we plan to do for this and probably most of the future episodes. We're going to feature a main topic. It could be a biblical lesson, a theological concept, a personal story from one of us, maybe practical Christian living advice, maybe a look at a movie review or something here or there. Really could be anything at this point. So, but we also want to address your questions or your concerns, and later on we'll let you know how to get those to us. Part of what we're trying to do here is to talk about things that are important to you, important to your life, and hopefully help you get some answers to some of those questions. And then at the end of each episode, we'll do something a little fun, for me at least, maybe a quiz or rapid fire questions, or I think we've already rolled out doing some kind of eating experimental foods. I tried. But maybe that'll make an appearance. I don't know. Today, we want to talk about why we're starting this podcast and what we hope to achieve. So I'll turn this over to whoever wants to go first. Why are we here? Why are we taking this time to record?
Well, I think I'll go ahead and start with that and kind of, at least in my opinion, kind of see how we got here, what kind of birthed this, I guess, maybe a little bit. Back in Sunday school class, we were actually doing a book, a workbook. It had, a section with Bible study and then a section of just like a story from the author, and both of them had questions. Well, one of the ladies in the class, she would always ask questions outside of the book, very in-depth questions. And luckily, it was always like right at the bell. So I'd always tell her, we can't answer that. We don't have enough time. She's had several. And kind of jokingly one day, I just said, we should just take a class and answer your questions. But then I kind of got, thinking about that. And I thought, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Just kind of have people submit questions, and we look at answering them. And I'll tell you, Brother Levi just ran with that, was really spearheaded that, and got the Facebook group together where people could just go into Facebook and post questions. We could review them, kind of study upon them. We were taking turns in class, different people answering the questions. Sometimes they were 10, 15-minute answers. Sometimes they took the whole class. But I really like what it's turning into, doing the podcast, and I really like the thought that Levi had with this.
And we'll be taking some of those questions we've answered in class and some other ones too. They're on the list for some of our other future things here.
Yeah, I think for myself, as it relates to this podcast, I've always kind of had not just the youngest in age, but also the youngest Christian. One of the first things that where it was a concern was, who am I listening to teach? Who am I listening to preach? And so I realized pretty quickly it was not always easy to figure that out, who was right and who was preaching the Bible and who was not. And I think with 3 small kids, I know we're all dads, and all of us have different age groups maybe, but with a 1, 3, and a 7-year-old, this world's crazy enough as it is, and so I want to make sure I'm doing a good job, not just with my kids, but the kids that maybe I get to interact with at church or wherever I am, to point out, who are good teachers, who are not good teachers. Is that correct biblically? Is it not? And not just for the kids. That goes for adults too, because that can be just as confusing for a 70-year-old or a 30-year-old as much as it is for a 7-year-old. So that's kind of always been on my heart as something to do or something to pay attention to. And maybe sometimes I'm a bit much with it, since my 7-year-old calls out false teachers when we watch them on TV. But, that's kind of one thing that has always been top of mind, and just kind of protect the hearts of my kids as much as I can, instead of just follow your heart, do whatever you want. Let's follow God. Let's follow the Word. So.
Yeah, I like how Kenny, every time he talks, he wants to tell us how young he is. Appreciate that, how old we are. For me, it's the podcast I'm looking forward to maybe being more personable. I think, when we come to church, and rightfully so, we're in a frame of mind where we want to worship and honor the Lord. And we certainly want to do that here, but also let people know that we have struggles too. And as leaders, we don't always have the answers or know exactly the right thing. We look to the Lord. And so the more personable aspect of it, and also the encouragement. We live in difficult times right now. So my prayer is that this time will be an encouragement to the ones who listen.
Just a couple other quick things. One thing, actually a couple things that Jody was saying. One, being personal, and there was a time when, just as a pastor, looking at him as a pastor, just in title alone, you kind of put him up on a pedestal to a degree. He got up one Sunday morning, and I don't remember exactly everything that he said, but the context of it, I remember he was in tears a little bit, and he was just kind of laying his heart, out to us, and saying some of the things, basically saying that he wasn't perfect in things. And at that moment, I stopped seeing him as someone who was up above me, that I could only, hear teach or preach, but someone that I can now go talk to, be personal with, and say, listen, Jody, I struggle with this, or, something like that. And I think that was just so important, a changing point, something I can look back on and just say, that I really appreciated him doing that, the ability to be able to say that, and for us to see that. So something else that Jody was saying, he kind of touched on when he first got on. Kenny keeps talking about his youth. It's not like he's 20s. He's not either this way. He's pushing 40. So I just want to say.
So how are you guys? How are you guys? If I'm pushing, I'm just kidding. I do probably have more gray hair than all of you combined. So, well.
Quiet down there, Kenny.
Yeah, the ones who do have hair.
I was going to say, you said that message that he preached that day kind of allowed you to go, felt like you could go to him more. And I was just thinking that I think I went to him the second time I was here. So I never had that. I never had that feeling of not being able to approach him. And then ever since, you know, you all know I like to joke a lot, so I'm always trying to knock him off any sort of pedestal he's on. So.
And not that he was never unapproachable. Right. I mean, not that he ever gave that persona of, I can't go talk to him. I mean, that's one thing that Jody has always done. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, at the door shaking hands, and when he is talking to someone, that person he's talking to is the only one that has his attention. Whether it's, you know, one of my kids, you know, some of the younger ones, or whether it's some of the older people, you know, they're the one that he's paying attention to. So it wasn't like he can, you know, it didn't feel like I could approach him, but just seeing him, I saw him as a pastor, and then I saw him as a person. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but just that moment was really good for me.
I'm very backward and I'm around people. So this will be hopefully some way, like if you come up to me at church, I'll talk to you, but it's very hard for me because I'm very, very shy and backward. So hopefully this gives you some more of my personality that I can't give you when I'm in front of people, because it's always been my problem. It's really hard for me to talk to people. So, but the other thing that I'm hoping to do is we live in a culture that is so accepting of so many different teachings that even if they're not just unbiblical, but they're just unsound logically, people will accept just about any kind of doctrine or any kind of teaching or any kind of understanding of reality. You know, you're only at church up to maybe 3 times a week, and as time goes on, fewer and fewer people are even going to church at all, let alone studying anything about the Bible. So I'm hoping this is also a way to strengthen our church, because this podcast right now is mostly focused on our church and people who we deal with here and who, you know, will be on our app and that kind of thing. And so hopefully it's a way to strengthen our understanding as a church body and be able to take that to other people and to raise our families. All right, so hopefully that gives you some indication of what we're doing here, what we seek to accomplish with our podcast, and hopefully keep returning and listening more, send in your questions, that kind of thing. And right now we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to do something a little fun. Hey, while we're taking a break, we'd like to invite you to visit our website, sunshinechurchwv.org. That's sunshinechurchwv.org. And there you'll find information about our church services, links to our social media pages, Pastor Jody's blog, and if you go to the announcements tab, you'll see a link called Sunshine Questions, where you can submit your questions or comments that we may just feature in a future episode. If you are listening to this episode in early 2022, then most likely you already attend our church and are listening to us on the app or at our website. However, if somehow you stumbled upon us from some time in the distant future, we welcome you just the same. If you live in the tri-state area of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio, we'd like to invite you to our church at 2111 James River Road, Huntington, West Virginia, 25701. If you're outside of our area, you can join our services on Facebook. To see more about our services both in person and online at our website, sunshinechurchwv.org. And now we'll get back to close out this episode of the Sunshine Podcast. All right, so we have people listening to us who most likely come to Sunshine already. They've probably met one or most of us in person. We may have had some casual chats with one or most of them, but like we said, one of our goals here is to help them get to know us more. And one day we're going to do that today is a rapid-fire question round. And we certainly did not just do this and have to do it again because somebody forgot to hit record. So I've got 7 questions here to kind of calibrate your taste with the audience, so they can begin to build an idea of your likes and dislikes to see if they should respect your opinion or not and judge you that way. So let's start with, at my left, Lee. This is the rapid fire. You've answered these before. Favorite movie?
My favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I'll go with The Dark Knight, Batman.
Remember the Goal.
Jurassic Park has been for a long time. Favorite cartoon?
Bugs Bunny.
X-Men, the animated series.
Tom and Jerry.
Animaniacs, but only the original. A favorite TV show of all time?
One of my favorites would have to be The Golden Girls.
I'll go with Everybody Loves Raymond.
The Andy Griffith Show.
It was the easy one for the pastor. I guess I'd go with Get Smart from Nick at Night. I guess it was actually on TV before, but I grew up watching it instead of like regular shows. All right, favorite restaurant?
My favorite restaurant would either be Subway or Chipotle.
I think you're only, as Christians, allowed to pick Chick-fil-A.
Is it Chipotle or Chipotle?
Chipotle?
I think it's Chipotle, but we just let Lee do what he does.
Mine's the Outback.
Mine, Rebecca, my wife doesn't like it, but it's Ponderosa. Excluding the Bible, favorite book?
As you all know, I don't read a whole lot, but I did read a book by Charles Spurgeon. It's called The Priority of Prayer, and that I really liked it.
Yeah, so this is a hard one for me since I don't read. I mean, I can read, but I don't. I don't read.
Going back to his youth.
Yeah, so I can't even think really of something other than the last book that I read, which was the book that we'll be talking about in one of the later episodes, which is Family Worship. So that's going to be my favorite book.
Yeah, this is a very difficult one for me too because I don't like to read a lot either. But I believe the name of the book was called Look to the Rock, and I just choose that because it was probably one of the most influential books that I remember reading.
Everyone's going to know how uneducated we are. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
So, fiction-wise, my favorite book is The Lost World by Michael Crichton, which was the second in the Jurassic Park series. I like dinosaurs. My favorite nonfiction book is Tactics by Greg Koukl, which tells you how to talk to people about pretty much anything, which so far hasn't really worked for me because it's hard for me to talk to anybody about anything. But
you're equipped when...
I can tell other people what he says to use for it.
I think I use a lot of things that you do tell us in Sunday school class or wherever we are. I've learned a lot from Levi over the last several years.
Definitely.
Favorite Christian song?
To God be the glory.
Are you going to call me out if I say Amazing Grace? Is that too easy?
It's the Baptist national anthem.
Exactly. I was going to say, I don't know. I mean, there's just so much there. So,
yeah, I was also going to say Amazing Grace, but Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. What's the name of that one?
Oh, wow.
And Just As I Am.
You should lead us in Come Thou.
No. Like a frog.
I would say mine, but I think if I say name my favorite song, all three of you would guess it. So name my favorite song.
I know. You don't know? He sings it like every time someone asks him
How
to
great
sing.
thou art.
There you go.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. All right. Finally, favorite Bible verse, since this is a Christian podcast.
Luke 1:37, for with God nothing shall be impossible.
Oh, man. This is a tough one. I always cop out because I learn Bible verses from different translations and then I can't ever remember them. I don't know. If I have one, I don't think that if I do, I probably don't have it memorized. So I don't know. Maybe I should cop out on this one or pass. I don't know.
You could just say all of them.
Yeah, I love all of Scripture and no. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I could come back to that, but I don't necessarily have one that I'm always thinking about or saying. So
the goal of the podcast from here till we finish it, at some point you will have
I have to have a favorite Bible verse by the time we get into another episode or something.
So, yeah, I think it's difficult. You say my favorite verse, but it seems like every verse that I'm reading, all of a sudden, that's my favorite verse. So, but Matthew 11:28 is good. Come unto me, all ye that labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So, I'll go with that one.
That could have been your favorite song too. Come unto me.
Come unto me.
So now you got three.
I think one thing I've learned from you three is that I'm not supposed to just pick a Bible verse and to then take it out of context.
Yeah.
My favorite's 1 Peter 3:15, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts and be ready always to give an answer to everyone who asks you for the reason within you. It's the apologetics core verse, and I always recommend that one. It's also in the middle of a passage in 1 Peter talking about dealing with persecution and how to stand as an honorable person in the midst of that persecution while still witnessing for Christ. So that's such an important one to me.
Every time I read that verse, I think of you.
Thank you. You heard it here. Let those opinions sink in. See what it reveals about each of us as we go along. Thank you so much for joining our first episode of the Sunshine Podcast. We look forward to talking to you more next time. This is Levi.
Lee.
Kenny?
Jody?
Signing out.